Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Dean Webb, you're just becoming a personality here. You'll be able to hear Dean Webb in a lot of other radio shows and television. And I wonder why that is, Dean, in a sense. Do you think it's because people really are starting to care about addiction in a different way? It's not nasty, it's not ugly, it's not, oh, those are bad people, but maybe now because you and Faith Farm Ministries has put a different tilt on it.
Yeah, I think people are starting to realize there's a lot of genetic research about, alcoholic genes in the brain and all this stuff. I think there's a lot of people have been affected by this so much that I think we're laundering the public opinion from this is really a choice. Now, the first drink or the first drug, it may be a choice, but a lot of people realize that the addiction problems to drug and alcohol, once you slip into that, you don't have a choice. You're driven. And so I think there's a lot more understanding that's happening than used to be, because it's not like, well, I just choose to do this. It's like you may have made that choice first time and slipped into that, but you can't get out of that. And that, I think that's part of it. And part of it is just, for us personally, it's just people are really shocked when I've been on radio, television, and tell them about what Faith Farm does. They've never heard of recovery. They've seen these big centers out on Palm Beach, for $1,000 a night, 30-day minimum, covered by insurance and all that. But nobody's seen a free program where you can come in for 9 months, and they're just kind of shocked about that.
And I think, isn't also that a lot of people think of Faith Farm as the place that you bring clothes or buy clothes,
thrift store. Yeah,
thrift
right.
Stores.
Yeah, and I think people are also starting to understand that that's a vehicle in how we fund ourselves too. Most of our 94% of our income money comes from our micro business enterprises, and people are drawn to that. They like that. I mean, all nonprofits have to raise money, but most of them have to raise 100%, and we need to raise about 6 to 10%.
Well, something I just wanted to share. Remember, you were on the show not too long, months and months ago, I guess, and we were talking about other places that are thrift shops, and they are really a for-profit, and we were discussing one of the ones I told you about. It went out of business.
Really?
Yeah, it did. Because I don't think people really realize what this business is like. It's, they open their doors, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and they wait for people to come in. It's so different from what you have. See, you are, it's a thrift shop with a heart. That's what I call it.
Yeah.
And so they did. Yeah, I thought that I was anxious to tell you that. But anyway, I have something in front of me that I think is very impressive. It's your 2014 annual report. Have you done annual reports before?
No, this is our first one. We wanted to be listed on GuideStar and get our gold rating, which we got. And usually, we're originally incorporated as a church, and we evolved into this ministry, drug and alcohol, helping people recovery. And so churches typically don't file a Form 990, for example. That's the form that everybody goes to if they want to make a major donation, or if you've made a grant request to get a grant. And so we have not been able to get on that for anybody to find us. Well, we submitted all of our stuff to them. And one of the requirements was an annual report. So we worked on that. And we gave and it requires just total objectivity, total vulnerability to give them all your innards and everything about you. And we gave that. And they have a copper, silver, gold rating, and usually the gold ratings are reserved for the nonprofits that have absolutely the most pristine. Well, they gave it to us because of our.
You got the gold?
Because of our audit, so they just said, you guys are so transparent with all of your information. And that just happened this week. We got a gold rating, so that's pretty neat.
Oh, that is so wonderful! Congratulations.
Thank you. That was tough. Matter of fact, my auditor says we audit some other large organizations that are incorporated as churches. Maybe we're going to tell them about and see if they can get on, because nobody's ever gotten on without a Form 990 before.
Well, I am so happy to hear that. Of course, I would think you should have, but as you said, they're very
rules,
strict. Sure, they're very big. Well, I remember that that when I first met you and all, you had lots of plans. It was never like this. How long have you been there now, Faith Farm?
June 13th, it'll be 8 years.
8 years. And so I'm sure as an ex-military person, you are very big at goal setting.
Yes.
Have any of these goals, did you set any of the goals that you now find yourself in?
Yes. Yeah. And some of them have been short-term goals, and some of them have been long-term. I've still got some long-term goals for the campus in Palm Beach. I want to totally rebuild that and enhance it because we're surrounded on two sides by multi-million-dollar homes, and then on the other side by the Bethesda West Hospital, and then on the front side by US 441. So, I need to enhance that build it up, and of course we have a need for more beds, and I need to put them there because that's our most profitable thrift store of the 3 locations, and it'll help fund that if I can get the extra beds approved.
And I know you're working on that.
Have a big meeting May 1st with
Good.
Palm Beach zoning and planning to hammer out what they'll allow us to do.
Well, I think you should change the what the prayers are about, at least for the next 30 days at Faith Farm, and you have to insert to pray for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of your big prayers. Oh, you did already.
Well, yeah, our directors at all 3 campuses in the Wealth Corporate Office, every Friday noon, we fast and pray for Faith Farm.
But you have to pray for that particular thing.
That's going to be on our list, yes. We always have plenty of needs, so
That's
it
right.
kind of rotates. But this one coming up, the date's been set, so that's a big deal for us.
Well, it's what some of the things that you have done that you're very proud of. Then, what of all the things that you have seen come to fruition, what would you say is the best so far?
Wow,
I know we weren't ready for that.
That's tough.
Well, I think for me anyway, I think the college is a pretty big thing. But you probably didn't think of that at the time. That was something new, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. It actually, the guy that's in charge of Wayne Richardson, in charge of development and programs, he was on the board of South Florida Bible College, accredited school here in the Boca area, and he proposed the idea to them that they donate college credit tuition to Faith Farm for anybody who's coming through the program. Now, they'd have to accredit our courses, and they've gone through, and they've screened, and they've dropped and added and inserted and everything. Then we've had to send all our people down to Boca to be trained at the school because, technically they're adjunct college professors because they're teaching courses that the students can sit for college credit. And so we're the only drug and alcohol recovery program in the world where the courses that we require people to go through on causes of addiction and all the stuff that we teach over a 9-month free program, those are accredited. In Class 6, which is after they've been in over 7 months, the last six weeks of their 9-month program, the first week of that 6-week Class 6, they sit for college credits. And they can go for 3, 6, or 9, depending on what they want to shoot for. They're progressively tougher, of course. And we just had a graduation at Boynton 2 Sundays ago where all 7 guys got college credit. And some of these guys, and we had one guy who was really slow, and it was so neat because one of the guys who actually had a master's degree went ahead and got the credits, and then he went over and sat by the guy just to be with him, to give him moral encouragement, because the guy was having a worse time, reading and writing and all this stuff, and he just sat there, didn't say a word, just sat there for moral support. And the guy, he made a C, but he got the first college credit he'd ever gotten in his life.
That is the most beautiful story for both of them.
Yeah, and the guy was an ex-Marine, had a master's degree, and we're all military guys, or no man left behind type attitude.
Yes.
So when he finished, he was one of the earliest ones to finish. He was the most educated guy on the campus. He went and just sat by the guy.
Let's go back to the guy with the master's degree. So it was there for addiction.
Yes.
Tell me how that happens. Tell everybody.
Well, it's like, it's kind of like you'll never have an alcoholic problem if you don't take your first drink. You'll never have a drug problem if you don't shoot up the first time you do drugs and take an entry drug like marijuana. You'll never have premarital pregnancy if you abstain from sex. I mean, everybody starts down a path, and it seems innocent when they start. But if you have a propensity to drugs or alcohol addiction, and there are a lot of studies about dopamine, the drug in the brain, and that affects the pleasure center. And everybody has a dopamine reading of 80 to 120, somewhere in there. And it'll spike up in the 200s, like during sex and something like that. But if you're addicted to food, drugs, or alcohol, and you satisfy that dopamine level will spike to 1,000. I mean, it'll just and when that's and when that spikes in your brain, it's like you've got to have another drink or you've got to have another fix. And that's why I say, if you just abstain totally, you never have to worry about it. You're playing Russian roulette if you ever do it, because you don't know if you have that gene that makes you want to be addicted and have that, not being able to stop drinking or stop the drugs. But once you get that addiction, you can't stop. It's cold turkey to go off that, and you have to really be motivated to stop. So like I said earlier in the program, a lot of people used to think that, well, these are a bunch of lowlifes just doing this and all this stuff. Well, we have had very educated, but we've had a guy that came through our Boynton campus that had a doctorate degree. He spoke 7 languages fluently. He was a $700 an hour consultant to Frank Borman when he did the Eastern Airlines bankruptcy organization in Miami a few years ago. But he got addicted to drugs. He should have never taken. He had a propensity towards that, and he lost his wife, his family, his business, everything. Then he came through our program and got changed. Went back to Miami to hunt up his wife, try to find her and remarry her.
But that means then he knew he could never have a drug ever.
Ever, yeah. And matter of fact, his name was Richard. And I kept track of him. He got a cell phone when he graduated. And I said, Richard, I'd like to come down and talk to you about after you've been out of the program about 30 days or so. And so I called him, and I went down to Miami, and I took him out to lunch. And I'll never forget, I said, Richard, I just got to know something. We don't have a single staff member, me included, that's as educated as you are. And we have some people that barely have a high school education that are key staff members that also teach classes at 8 in the morning. And you had to sit through guys that were nowhere near educated as you are. I said, how did you have the discipline to sit through that and listen? And the interesting thing about this is while he was during our 9-month program, his home in Princeton got foreclosed on. He had a $6 million home on Miami Beach, got foreclosed on. His wife left him and divorced him. I said, how did you have the fortitude to stick it knowing all this storm was happening to everything you had? And how did you stick that out? Plus, you were under the instruction of people who are nowhere near as educated as you. And Richard was very pragmatic. The guys used to not like him because he would carry his Greek New Testament into the chapel services, and they go, "Oh, Richard's just showing out again." Well, he said, "No, I'm not. It's just it's so much richer before it was translated. I like the original." I mean, that's who he was, So anyway, I said, "How did you do that, Richard? How did you stick it out?" He said, I said, "Because you're so smart. How'd you He said, Dean, I am smart." And he wasn't bragging. That's just who Richard was. He said, I am smart, and I'm smart enough to know 2 things. I realized, number one, that I needed God in my life. That was the missing link out of everything I owned and everything I was doing, and I was missing God. I knew I needed God in my life. And the second thing I knew, I did a lot of research, and I knew I'd find him at Faith Farm. So that's why I committed to the 9 months to stick it out.
Wow.
He said, now that I've got God deep in my life, he says, I will go back. He says, I won't get the same houses back, but I'll get other houses back, and I'll start another business, and I'll be okay.
So in answer, though, what you said, however he had to get God back was listening to people who were underneath his education level.
Absolutely,
and all, just whatever it took, because he then had God back. So he figured if he were there, that was why. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, that's what he needed, and he knew he'd find it there. And once he felt like he had that in his life, then he could go back, because he was very skilled. He was very. It's
too bad you can't have him as a lecturing professor, because I think when these other people who haven't had any education would hear someone like that might just pique their interest.
Yeah, but we have so many people that are undereducated. That when we have guys speak in their life and lay down their life for them to help them, it probably means more than somebody who's real polished or what. Like, for example, I've never had a drug or alcohol problem, so I don't have probably as much impact. If I had one-on-one with the students, I wouldn't have as much impact as somebody who had recovered and been through it, because he can talk their language. They can identify with him. They know that he knows where they're at. And they know I don't. They know I have a heart for them, but they know I've never been there.
And so they would say that, well, you don't know. You've never been there, right?
That's
true.
And I always tell them, because I had a guy say that, because I speak to the incoming class every time, and I had a guy say that, well, you don't know what I've been through. And I said, well, all I can tell you is I went through a 19-month period where my mother-in-law died, my mother died, my wife of 32 years died of cancer. I lost 3 businesses. The only difference between me and you, I turned to the Bible instead of the bottle.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I said, because that's how I was brought up. That was my source of strength.
Yes.
So that's what we try and put into the students so they can stand on that when they leave.
That's beautiful. No, that's a very good thing, because there are other people, I'm sure, who also work there that haven't had
and I tell them, we all walk a different path. We've all had crud happen to us, okay? But it's not what happens to us. It's how we respond to what happens to us that makes all the difference in our life.
It's funny you should say that, because a lot of people don't really know my history. And unless people really want to know, I don't tell them. It doesn't matter. But I recently was with someone, and she was telling me, and I was telling her, she said, you had all those things happen to you? I said, yes. And she said, and look at you. I said, but it's okay. I don't know. It was choices, I guess. I didn't let it get me down. And so that's what you're saying, that everyone, if you're a human being, you're going to have problems. You're going to have problems.
You're going to have it.
And maybe they make us stronger. I've probably said that a lot of people who've had, and you could see them, wealthy people who've never had to think about what it was to earn a living or had losses, they don't do such great things.
Yep.
So maybe it's some of us. Now, the one thing that I think is great for you, though, is that you do understand enough, even though you haven't been through it, that you have geared your programs to people who really need extra help in what you're saying. I mean, and I'm not being clear about that, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that you know that there are people who are going to find every excuse in the book why they can't do it. Because you don't understand, or this happened, and maybe many things have been pretty bad. Of course, I've met some of the people you've brought here, and some of the people when you turned to God, your book, Wrong Ways Made Right, where they were really in serious trouble. But they had choices after they got to Faith Farm. And before they had choices, but somehow they didn't make the right choices.
Right.
But once they got to Faith Farm, they made the right choices. Yeah. Right?
Once they checked in and made the commitment to stay 9 months and graduate, then there's kind of a load off their shoulder. There are no more decisions. They don't have to pay rent or utilities or anything. Their food, clothing, shelter, everything's provided for them. Their instruction, they're cocooned in love. We're people that understand, and we want the best for them. And we're doing everything in our power to remove any excuse they have for not being successful. We're doing everything in our power to remove excuses. So if they need a GED, they have to study and get their high school diploma. If they want to study, everybody goes through the same course. Some people just turn down and don't sit for the college exam. Some people do. Some people do and don't make it. I mean, but we encourage everybody to take a shot at it. And because we know the self-esteem of people who have not ever been successful at something or completed something. And a lot of people that come in from off the street, addictive or homeless or whatever, they have not had a good track record in completing things or being successful. And part of that maybe be their upbringing. I mean, a lot of our guys in our program, they've never had a father in the home. They've never seen a work ethic model where alarm clock's set and you get up at 6 and you go to work. They've never seen that. So the work project that we have that pays their way through is vitally important, because that gets them up to speed above where they've been, so that when they get out in the world and they graduate and we get them a job or whatever, then they're going to have the work ethic established after 9 or 10 months at Faith Farm, and they're going to do well. But if we took them when they first came in and put them out there, they're not going to be able to compete because everybody else who's out there working, they're doing their thing, and these guys have always avoided work. Some of them.
I think it's a good time for me to introduce you again because of course, I know who you are, but I want everyone else to, and maybe give them a chance to, if they do need your help at Faith Farm, or if they want to donate money, even though they may be donating clothing or buying clothing. Let's see if you have a couple of extra bucks that you could pass on, because it's expensive to take care of people, and you know what they say. It's if it isn't today, you never know what's going to be tomorrow for you. So let's do something about it. So Dean Webb is the executive director of this magnificent organization with 3 campuses. And the phone number, if you want to call them in Palm Beach County, it's 561-737-2222. If you want to call them in Broward, this is for pickup, and they will come. Nice people, and they do what they say. They come when they say they're going to come, too. Very important. In Broward, it's 954-763-7787. And if you just go to their website, which, of course, is faithfarm.org, faithfarm.org. And if you get Boomer Times, then you'll want to go and look at the articles. Every month, Judy Walters writes a very, very beautiful article. I don't know where she gets them from. I mean, in her brain, she's just great. She really tells you what's happening there, and you'll learn a lot about Faith Farm. If you want to write a check, you just can call that number or go on their website, and you'll see an address. Send them the check. You'll feel so good because it's one organization that you can see where the money's going and what it's doing. Okay, so now that I've said that, do you still have auto sales? I haven't heard about those.
Well, it's because when the economy tanked, people started hanging on to their cars longer. I heard a stat today that the average car on the road is 11.8 years old. And it was the CEO of Auto Nation who had record 27% increase in earnings. And they said, how can you have 27% increase in earnings? He says, well, everybody needs a car. He said the average automobile is 11.8 years old on the road, and things are really wearing out. And people, and now that the economies and people get financing, they're a little more hopeful in the economy. They're starting to buy new cars. So I would expect our donations to start picking up so we can have auto auctions and get the money to help our program.
Okay, so if you have a car, that's a good point. If you have a car, they'll pick it up. They'll give you the right donation for it. Why not do that? I was mentioning it because I've been to some of the auto sales on Saturday or Sunday, and it's amazing the cars that drive up, and you can buy a car there sometimes for a couple of $1,000s.
Oh yeah,
and you have people now when they fix the cars. Are these people who were auto mechanics before and they just happen to be there? How do you get that done?
Some aren't. Guys that have an interest in it and have never had a job or something, they can work in the garage. And Clive Supal, our guy that's over the garage, he has training. And, of course, our comprehensive work training program, one of the 15 modules is auto mechanics, just like we have one for construction and landscaping and food service and new furniture, used furniture, trucking and docks and call centers. And so garage and mechanics is one of them. So these guys are trained, and then they come down on Monday night. They go through a class, and they every Monday night they come from the other 2 campuses to the Palm Beach campus, and they're trained, and they have to pass a test to get a certificate, of course. And but it's not real heavy. They don't break down a diesel truck engine or anything like that. But they are trained. They're trained in brakes. They're trained in oil changes, servicing the cars, and just the minor service type things that they do, and in trouble checking stuff.
So all of these things you've said. So when they leave Faith Farm, you can almost be assured they're going to find a job.
Yeah, most of our people do because from the comprehensive work training program. We had a guy that wanted to be in the trucking business, and he actually took his binder, 3-ring binder that he got in docks and trucks, and he took it to his job and flipped it around and opened it and said, look, here's all 13-week courses that I went through to training. Here's my score on my exam, and here's my certificate of completion. And he got his job. We had 2 women do that, working in our call center, taking calls for for us to pick up the free donations. They got jobs with call centers. They took their call center book and said, "Look, here's how I was trained." So we're starting to see the productivity of that. Ashley Furniture, the third largest furniture manufacturer and sales organization in the world, they're helping us because we're the third largest Ashley dealer in South Florida. They're helping us with the modules. So when the guys go through our new furniture, I mean, they can look at a chair and say, well, that's Federal, that's Early American, that's French Provincial. They can look and say, well, that's not leather, that's Naugahyde. They know the fabrics, they know and so they are helping us train our people in the stores, which not only help us sell, which helps the program, but it helps them get knowledge where they can go get a job. We've had 3 guys go with Ashley up at Wellington Mall and get jobs.
You must be so proud of this, Dean. I know when I watch you, I know you have the smile on your face. It really makes it all worthwhile because I know you work so hard. I watch you all the time, day and night, weekends. Even when you're out, you have that phone glued to your ear in case they need you. That's really what it takes. I mean, I know you've said before that don't tell the board of directors, but you do this anyway without money if you could afford it. I can understand why. It's every day you just wait to see, and I know you get lots of letters, lots of calls of people who really care about you. I'm only hoping that people listening to this radio show will appreciate what it is for Dean to come to the show, take the half hour, drive here from wherever he is, go back, and he's doing it because not only does he likes people, he likes to share with everyone, but it's his heart that asks. Your heart demands this of you. You know that.
We have one listener who's got a niece or a nephew or son or daughter or something and hears about us, and they can't afford $1,000 a day program, and they hear that we've got a free program, and this helps save a family member just because, it's the old story in the Bible. The shepherd had 100 sheep. He got out. He left the 99, went and got the lost one. If we get one more in, it helps.
I didn't hear that story. That's so nice. You're great. Well, Dean, again, we've done it, and I appreciate it. And people can get your book, You Turn to God, Wrong Ways Made Right. It's graduation stories of people who were really in pretty bad shape, and then when they graduated, they made it. And so I hope you'll get that book, too. It's very inspirational. Thank you so much, Dean.
Thank you for having me on. I love to talk about Faith Farm.